Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Alexander Valley Film Festival. Thanks for being here. I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers with the festival, and I've programmed the Binge Local block that you've seen. Today, you've had the opportunity to see this wonderful film, Freeland, and we're going to have a chance to talk with some of the team there. But beforehand, obviously, this whole experience with virtual film festivals isn't something that we or the filmmakers ever expected, but the show must go on, and we found some really great films to be able to share with you. And so we're really happy with the donors and sponsors that have helped us keep us afloat during these hard times and help celebrate the arts in the community. There's a quick statement that we at Alexander Valley would like to read, and it just kind of keeps with the kind of larger themes, both of the festival, but also out there in the world. The Alexander Valley Film Society recognizes that we are on unceded lands of the Coast Miwok, Pomo, and Wapo tribes. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous people who have lived here for thousands of years and who continue to contribute in meaningful ways in their communities and our society as a whole. Our shared history includes the genocide, forced removal, and ethnic cleansing of indigenous peoples. The Alexander Valley Film Society is committed to centering indigenous voices and stories. Sorry about this, everybody. That's what happens when you have to read it from a phone. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous people that have lived here for thousands of years and who continue to contribute in meaningful ways to their communities and our society as a whole. Our shared history includes the genocide, forced removal, and ethnic cleansing of indigenous people. The Alexander Valley Film Society is committed to centering indigenous voices and stories to recognize the past and celebrate the resilience of Native people and their culture. Our deepest thanks go to Nikki Myers-Lim of the California Indian Museum and Cultural Center and Clint McKay from the Pepperwood Preserve for their assistance in this acknowledgement. To find out more, please visit the website avfilmsociety.org/equity and just give that a moment to kind of reflect and think. And now we will start our Q&A with the team behind Freeland. Thank you again for being here, everybody.
Thanks for having us, Chris.
Pleasure.
Let's start with you, Mario. Can you introduce yourself and your role with the film?
Oh, sure. My name is Mario Furloni, and I'm one of the co-directors of the film, co-writers. I also shot it.
Beautiful cinematography this.
Thank you.
Laura?
Hi, my name is Laura Heberton. I'm one of the producers of the film, or the producer of the film, but one of the many people who helped make the film happen. And thank you so much to you, Chris, and to Catherine and the Alexander Film Festival for having us. I mean, we all watch films virtually anyway, so really this is perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, we're trying to be the alternative to Netflix and Hulu in some ways. And the star of the show, Krisha, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Krisha Fairchild, and I was the person who was honored to inhabit Devi and to spend some time in the groove with this crew creating the story you've just seen.
And welcome back. I know we screened an earlier film of yours, I think, in our...
Sorry, Chris, I think we lost you for a little bit.
We lost you, yeah. We lost you. Did you mention Krisha, the film Krisha?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to just nod, but I'm like...
There's a little Zoom hiccups sometimes, To the audience, thanks for rolling with the punches. So maybe Mario and Laura, can you kind of start us off with the kind of how the journey of this film began? Like, where was the inspiration for the story?
Sure.
That's Mario. That's Mario.
Well, the early origin. So this film started about 10 years ago with a documentary that Kate McLean, the co-director, and I made while in grad school. And this was my first time going up north from Brazil originally. Kate, who knew this culture a lot better than I did, thought that there was interesting stories to be told there. So she sort of hooked me into this project, and we did that doc, and then we started talking about, what else is there? Can we do a feature doc? And from there we started working on the scripted versions. We thought that doing it as a feature, as a fiction film would allow us to get at something deeper there. And about 7 years ago, we hooked up with Laura at IFP, which is a great market to meet people. And then, you know, we had a mess of a script at the time, but Laura saw in that mess of a script a really interesting world and helped us get to this point. And about 5 years ago, then we met Krisha, and then from there on, it was easy going.
Magic.
It was magic.
Krisha Fairchild magic. Yeah.
How did you all connect? How did you, Krisha? How did the team? How did you kind of connect and cross paths?
Actually, I was in LA for the Indie Spirits for Krisha, and I got a letter from Laura, and she came really well recommended by friends I knew and people I had worked with, and they sent me the script. And at the time, I was still so kind of in the mire of what's going on. I started my career at the end. You know, it's like, so I don't have to go through any of the bullshit that I walked away from the first time about, you know, is it worth the money to do this piece of shit? You know, for me, it's every script is, what is the merit? What is the message? Can I do honor to this character in a way that I feel will show not only the best, but the worst, create empathy, all of those humanistic things that I believe in. And they had a character like that. The script wasn't finished yet, and when we finally came back around, we kept coming back around to it together. And then once we started talking, it turned into like a email chains and Zoom chains of just story, this kind of stuff. And we all inspired each other to take it, go dive with it, you know, find where everything, the realest real was. And then by that time we were all hooked. It was like, I would have waited 15 years to do it, you know?
Very nice. And maybe a good place to kind of also to kind of explore things. So, you know, Mario, you and your co-director Kate kind of come from a more documentary film background. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so how do you think, I mean, obviously, like a filmmaker is a filmmaker or a storyteller is a storyteller. How do you think your background in documentary filmmaking affected the way that you approach the story, and then also the way that you and Kate worked with Krisha?
Yeah, I think it took us a while to sort of like get rid of some hangups of what we thought a fiction film should be, right? Like, and that was like the sort of part of the development process of the film before we got to this point where we were ready to shoot the film, was to sort of get rid of some preconceptions that I think were wrong, really. You know, like, and at the point when we started really working on the film, you know, and when we were shooting, the idea is like we knew what our forte was, which is like to see something happening on as we're filming and to have a sense of whether it feels true or not. And I think that's what we learned from documentary, you know, because it's not just, you can be filming real life and it can feel fake. Like it's very often actually in documentary that you're filming something and people and the situation feels forced, it just feels strange and it doesn't feel real. So I think that's what we knew we could bring, and sort of like a thread of like, or the concept of, you know, the story from A to B. And then we really worked with Krisha, with the other actors, but really Krisha was sort of like the main collaboration of building that character and building the sort of like depth to that character. I think, I mean, Krisha, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was a very collaborative and very like open relationship of bring it, like, let's, you know, let's build this character and let's build this world together.
In my opinion, all creative artists have to have a certain level of ego in order to even ever get their ideas on the screen. But with indie filmmaking, to my mind, the very best indie filmmaking is when people bring their background, their expertise, their skills, their gifts, and they're willing to set their ego to the side and say, wow, that might work better than what we had thought about. That, and I got a lot of that from them, where they, from their documentary stuff, were able to say to me, well, I know that's what you would do, but, you know, let's take a second, you know, ways in which she's different. Oh, right. wow. An actor needs to be reminded of that. We could just pick up the ball and run with it. The other people, Kate was brilliant at that laser focus of the overall picture. How does this serve the whole thing? Everyone put their best on the line. We let go of our egos. We were open. Anybody could make a suggestion. The guy who's running to get the coffee, if he's got a good suggestion, it gets listened to, it gets tried. That's indie filmmaking at its best. And that's what, to me, this was. I don't know from documentaries. I've never been in one, I've lived a lot of them. but
I think their documentary filmmaking background, because the kind of films that they've worked on, they have spent a lot of time observing people and just watching them and seeing, what makes them tick, which is a part of great, a certain kind of documentary filmmaking. And so I think their understanding of what makes a person or a character is actually fairly rich. And I think that's one of the things they definitely brought to this.
And the truth meter that documentarians, it's like Mario was saying, I would call that a truth meter. What you guys could feel. Is it bullshit? Even if it is true, is it working? Are people going to attach to it? Are people going to be able to empathize with it? So that,
The other
and also they knew the world so well too. They knew this world, and they knew who the Krisha character was incredibly well. So
the other thing too is that we built a team that was we had a crew of 7, a core crew of 7 people only, and 7, that's counting Krisha, because she was an integral part of the crew, other than being the cast as well. So
it's very tiny for an independent film.
Tiny, and we all lived together. We cooked, we cleaned dishes, we did, we talked to the wee hours of the night about the film and about everything else too. And I think that brought the sense on set. The person getting the coffee was often me or Kate or Krisha or some, we didn't have that kind of hierarchy that I think often even small sets can get and get this sort of sense of oh, this is my job, that's all I do, or this is not your job, don't tell me what you think, because we don't care, right? I think it was a set where, Krisha was saying, where everybody could and often did, and often there were amazing ideas, and we stole them all and then put our name on it.
So with that kind of ethos in mind, Laura, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how was it like to kind of manage and produce this independent film on location? What were some of the kind of challenges of filming on location, and then 2, what did the community think when you and the crew hit town?
Well, you're going to ask me the question I'm always hoping people won't ask me. I was unable to be on location, so I actually can't answer that. So due to family commitments, because we needed to shoot at a certain time when the weed was coming into harvest. We were shooting on these real pot farms, so the window was very limited. And I already had a family commitment at that time, so I was unable to be on set. So I'd love to say it was fantastic. It was really easy. It worked incredibly well. I mean, I was available by phone constantly, but
You felt like you were there, Laura.
Thank you.
You were there. You were there.
Thank you. Every
day we came back from our shoot, and the first place we all went to was the dining room of the house we were sharing, looking for the packages. Am I right?
Yeah.
He was sending us care packages
right.
every day. There were
Every
amazing delicacies from the area where the city she lives in. We were fighting over, there were hands being slapped as we were digging into the box to get the stuff. One of the few times I had a meltdown, I just was at the point of exhaustion. And I always knew I could call Laura, and I would call her and just have total diarrhea of the mouth. And there would be a calm. You were the calm center that we were all working to impress. And that's
right. Okay, that's good. That's exactly the way it should be. That's
when the dailies,
fantastic.
The dailies were coming out every day. We were like, oh, Laura's gonna love this. Oh, did you show Laura that take of that scene? It's true.
You're too kind to me. Anyway,
it's true.
Say, Chris, as far as the reaction of the community, we were lucky to pair with a great filmmaker who lives in the Bay Area. Actually, now she's moved back to Humboldt, but she was raised in Humboldt, and she was an integral part of our team, Claire Weisbluth. And from the script stage, so she was giving us feedback on, like, you know, that's not actually how you grow, like how you do this part of the process, or, you know, if you're going to send weed out of town, and you wouldn't do it that, you know, like, she had amazing feedback. And then, but she was also there, she found a lot of locations for us. She was sort of like our most immediate connection to the community. And but that was like super helpful.
Nice. And
yeah, we couldn't have made the film without her at all.
Definitely
we really
not.
couldn't have. Yeah.
well, it just shows you that even though obviously these films are made out of, you know, by force of will, but they do really require community, you know, based on the kind of small network of, you know, the crew, but also the kind of outlying community as well. And I think it brings a kind of an intimacy that we, you know, feel on screen when we're watching it. And, you know, I think, you know, kind of going back to this independent filmmaking idea, and this question's for all three of you, is like, what do you think some of the things that, you know, we in the audience, I mean, there are many people in the audience that maybe are involved in other kind of creative professions in the arts, but like, what do you think people might be surprised about, like, independent filmmaking, I guess, or what it takes to kind of, you know, make a film like Freeland?
It's a really good question.
A lot of
That's a great
time.
question.
You sit down to write a symphony or to paint a painting. You're alone in a room. You do the creation, and then after that, the question is, can I market it? With indie film, you start with, they do that creation, and then can we market it? And then before it ever gets made, it goes into all these other homes of all these other artists who are sitting and reading it and thinking, what do I bring? What coda do I bring into this symphony? What you know, what overlay of what other artists can I bring into this painting? And I think they'd be surprised at the time that it can take. This from start to finish. The beginning of this script was what, Mario?
8-9 years ago. Yeah, if you count the doc, is over 10 years of making this project, I'd say.
My opinion.
Yeah, no, I always say to that, to a similar kind of question when people ask me about this, I always say it takes phenomenal patience and also impatience, because you actually need both of those things. As Mario will happily report, I'm a super impatient person, and I have learned through producing to try to be patient. But as someone who, I used to be an editor, in terms of storytelling, you really do just sometimes have to wait for the story to unfold. I think that's true of anybody writing music, painting, sculpting, doing all kinds of arts, you know. I don't know if that's particular to independent filmmaking.
Yeah.
And you know, as we kind of dig in on just a little bit more, like, what was it about this character, Krisha, and the kind of the world that she inhabited that, you know, you were first drawn to, and these words that Mario and Kate had put on paper?
Sliding doors, the concept behind that film. For me, I had the chance to go and live that life. I had the chance to be that person. And I happened to have an ability that was able to give me a different life. If I had not had my gift in the arts, I could have been her. So there was that. And there was, again, I won't take a role if it's written as a person who is one-dimensional. I won't take a role if it's a completely negative person and they get away with it. I have these rules. Okay, so they presented me with a character that it was very easy morally for me to work with them to build a structure for how unfucking fair it was, what was happening to these people up there, the pioneers, the respected people of the beginning of this whole weed phenom, and that they were having that happen. So all those elements spoke to me, and it spoke to me because that's the background they come from, is to take that outrage and that curiosity about, well, how would that happen, and how would that feel, and what would that, and so that's where they hooked me, is that it was a real thing that I could have been living through.
Nice. And, you know, Mario and Laura, so how many days did you guys shoot? And then with the script that you started, like, you know, given your documentary background and kind of small mobile crew, how much kind of improvisation or kind of like changes kind of happened once you arrived on set?
Well, the first shoot was at 14 days or not, and then and there was a full scriptment. You know, it wasn't just a treatment. There was a full scriptment, and there was a lot of it really was written. But there was that ability for Krisha and Frank Mosley and Lily and the actors to, and even everybody working on to grow things on set. But then we did a reshoot. Mario can tell this more. And it was in the course of after waiting from when we shot in August until the following May, because we had to wait until things looked the same again. That we, again, we worked a lot on the script and also with our editors to prepare. So the second shoot was more scripted, wouldn't you say, the second part? When we
I think we knew a little more about like exactly where we wanted to slot in, but even then we had, I mean, we had the kind of like a joke of like structure unstructured time. So like we tried to give enough time during the day, a few hours of the day where we could either take a nap or we could like go and shoot a little something that we didn't know if we could fit in the film. We had these sort of like, which what we're trying to do is have enough structure so that we knew we could edit this thing as a movie together. And there were scenes that were completely like, I don't think we changed very much of the dialogue. And there were scenes that were very improvised. The dinner scene where what we did instead in that scene is to give prompts, and then we just shot it maybe 10 times uninterrupted and then cut it together. Coming from Doc, it's like, that seems like such a, like, it's a crazy privilege. Like, you're like, oh, you can shoot this dialogue scene again? Great, like from a different angle. That's amazing. So in some ways we felt like we didn't need that, like we could allow for things to be a little more spontaneous. And also what allowed us to do is, because we were not so attached to a script that we thought was sacred, we could change things. Like the inciting incident was something that we discovered as we were driving there for the shoot.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that letter that people were receiving.
The permit, yeah.
They were actually receiving that. People were receiving that letter. Yeah. We learned about this. And we're like, let's write that in.
No, they called me. They called me from the highway.
From the highway.
Like, wait, we just heard this thing. I was like, that's fantastic.
Like,
yeah, it's great. No, it was. It's great. Yeah.
And then what was interesting is that we were there filming, and Krisha would be at the farmer's market, right, Krisha, and be hearing about people who just got that letter, just like her character, in the film. So that felt like it suddenly we were there and things felt like tingly, like felt like, oh, wow, this is actually happening right here.
Farmers markets where everything happens, where you get
serendipity
information.
They should call every farmers market Serendipity Market.
Well, before we wrap up, I just think you all have just crafted a really beautiful film, and appreciate you all for sharing it with us at the Alexander Valley Film Festival. Is there any kind of, I have my kind of final question for you. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the audiences that maybe they might be surprised by about either the making of the film or just, the takeaways that you might want to have for them?
I only got high once.
That is a good question.
On screen, you mean?
It was legal.
On screen.
I lived my whole life with it being illegal, and there I am shooting a movie and it's legal, and there's like big mason jars, so the first night before they weren't shooting any dialogue the next day, we were just doing locations and wardrobe and stuff, and like a pipe was going around, and I took like one toke, and it's the new stuff, not the stuff that we used to. And I was on another planet. I had to leave, right? Remember? I
yeah. Went to bed early that night.
I have to go to my and I got back to the cabin, and I was totally like, you have to learn your lines. And then I went, it's okay if you were ever going to get high the whole time. This is the night, but no more ever during the shoot. And I didn't.
Maybe tell a little bit about being at the convention too, because that was such a crazy part of the whole story.
Well, that was the day we met.
That was the first day of the shoot. The first day of the shoot, you had to go do that. So
yeah, that was Mario. You want to do that one?
Well, I mean, so Krisha had just arrived from Mexico, and the first thing we did was to go to this convention, and none of us had any idea of what it was going to look like, because I had done
We had
research
a last
conventions,
minute switch to that convention also.
to that convention, and we didn't know there was going to be as sort of high tech and you know, as sort of like caricature of this new weed world as it was. You know, like when we saw that sign that said cannabis meat capital that ends up in the film, it's like, if we had written that, we would have been like, oh, come on, that's just a little too much, isn't it? Let's take that thing off. But right there it was, you know, it was, yeah.
Also, we walked inside the door, Mario, and the first thing we saw was that dude with the big machine.
That's right.
The guy with the thing, it looked like a cross between a gas chamber and a Star Wars death.
Yeah.
And literally, that was the very first moment we walked in the door, and he captured me, and he's showing me how to do this. He makes me push the button,
Right.
and I can just feel Mario behind me thinking, I can't believe we're getting this. I can't believe we're getting this.
Yeah. And we shot, like, basically that whole scene we shot it like in a Borat style, like Krisha was in character as Devi. We would shoot a scene with somebody, and then we would go and explain. Usually Krisha would go and say, like, listen, this is actually for a fiction film, explain it. And then if they were okay, and everybody was for that, I think except for one person, they signed releases then. So that was this idea of like, you know, you're really just trying to capture reality, augmented reality, I guess. I don't know.
I really want to see Krisha now be Borat in a Borat movie, because I think that would
You
be
could pull it off, Krisha.
so great.
No song.
So great.
No song.
No wrestling, no song. Sorry.
Anyway, thanks to everyone for watching. Please tell all your friends. We're hoping for distribution later in the year. And so when the film does come out and you enjoyed it, please be sure to watch it and tell everybody you know to watch it too. And enjoy the rest of the festival and all the great programming.
Well, thank you. I think we can see here just from the Q&A about how much, how fun-loving each of you are and how the experience, I think, kind of shaped the film that we saw. You know, I always like to remind the audience out there, you're the street level marketing team, you know, for Freeland and the team here. And so if you like the film, please share it on social media and let them know you just saw this great film. And what's the social media handles for Freeland, guys?
It's all at Freeland Film everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
So talk this shit up so everybody can kind of get a chance to help bring the film to their own community and hopefully get a chance to watch it again later in the year.
Yeah.
Thanks again, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you all for
you.
supporting
Okay.
the film.
Okay. Bye.